Have you ever been judged by what someone wears, or the way they behave, only to find out the truth is nothing like you imagined? That's exactly what happened to me one Saturday night at the restaurant where I work. It was one of those busy evenings, the kind where every table is full, the kitchen is shouting orders, and you're running on pure adrenaline. The kind of night where you try your best to smile even when your feet ache and your patience wears thin. I've been working as a waitress for a few years now. It's not glamorous, but it pays the bills, and sometimes I get to meet people who surprise me. That night, the restaurant was packed with families, couples, and groups laughing and chatting over dinner. The hum of voices and clinking glasses filled the air. I was moving between tables when she walked in. You could tell right away she was rich. Her expensive dress, perfectly styled hair, and that cold, confident stare made her stand out from everyone else. She didn't smile, she didn't even look around. She simply took a seat, expecting to be waited on immediately. I went over to her table, ready with my usual warm greeting, but she barely responded. She ordered without much kindness, barely looked at me, and when the meal was over she refused to leave a tip. In that moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: shock, hurt, and confusion all wrapped together. But little did I know, this was only the beginning of a story that would change everything I thought I knew about people like her. She walked in like she owned the place. Her heels clicked sharply on the floor, her eyes scanning the room without a hint of warmth. She wore a sleek black dress that hugged her figure perfectly, and her diamond earrings caught the light every time she turned her head. Her lips were painted a bold red, but there was no smile, only a look that said, "I'm better than everyone here." I tried not to let her attitude get to me as I approached her table. "Good evening, welcome. Can I start you off with something to drink?" I asked, forcing a polite tone. She barely glanced up. "Water, tap. No ice," she said, her voice cold and clipped. I nodded and quickly brought her the water. Over the next few minutes, I took her order. She didn't ask questions, didn't smile, and when I made small talk, just trying to be friendly, she responded with one-word answers or a dismissive nod. It felt like she was testing me, seeing how much she could get away with. When her food arrived, she barely touched it. I checked in once to see if everything was okay. "It's fine," she said, eyes glued to her phone, not even bothering to look up. By the time the bill came, I had already noticed the tension in the air. Some of the other waitstaff were watching her too, whispering quietly. I felt my heart tighten when she pulled out her card, paid, and then slid the receipt back to me without leaving any tip. I stood frozen for a moment, staring at the empty tip line, my cheeks burning with embarrassment. The other customers nearby glanced over, some shaking their heads or exchanging looks. One elderly couple at the next table muttered something about rich people and their attitudes. It wasn't just about the money, it was the feeling of being dismissed, like I didn't matter at all. For a moment, I wanted to tell her off, to let her know that kindness costs nothing, but I stayed quiet, swallowed the lump in my throat, and moved on. Still, as I walked away, I caught a flicker in her eyes, something unexpected. It wasn't anger or superiority, it was almost sadness. For a split second, her cold mask seemed to crack, just enough for me to wonder if there was more to her story than I realized. I couldn't shake that feeling. Who was this woman really? Why did she seem so distant and yet, so troubled? After she left the table without tipping, I thought the whole thing was over. I tried to shake off the sting and focus on my next customers, but fate had other plans. A little later, as I was wiping down a nearby table during a brief moment of calm, I overheard a conversation that caught me off guard. The rich woman had stayed inside the restaurant, sitting quietly in a corner booth, watching the room with a strange intensity. I was talking to my coworker Jenny about something personal without meaning to. Jenny knows most of my story, and sometimes I forget people can overhear. "I'm just tired," I said quietly, "working all these shifts to send money home. Mom's been sick, and I promised her I'd help with the bills. If I can just save enough, maybe I can go back to school someday, study nursing or something that actually makes a difference." Jenny nodded softly. "You deserve that chance. You work so hard." That's when I noticed the rich woman's eyes flick toward us. At first, she looked indifferent. Then, her expression changed, just a little. Her brow furrowed, and I swear I saw a flicker of something almost gentle. I kept working, pretending I hadn't noticed, but inside, my heart started racing. Why was she paying attention to my story? Why did it seem like she cared? I found myself watching her, trying to read her face, looking for any clue about what she was really thinking. But she stayed quiet, withdrawn, as if she was wrestling with something invisible. Later, when I brought her a fresh drink, I dared to ask, "Is everything okay? You seem distant." She looked up at me, her eyes locking with mine for the first real moment. Then, almost in a whisper, she said, "Sometimes, people don't see the stories behind the faces. I'm learning that tonight." Her words caught me off guard. I wanted to ask more, but she just nodded politely and returned to her phone. I couldn't stop wondering, why was she here? Why had she refused to tip? Was it some kind of test, or was there a deeper reason behind her coldness? That night, I realized there was much more to her than the rich, rude woman everyone was whispering about. Something was hidden beneath that perfect exterior, and I was determined to find out what. The night was winding down when something unexpected happened. I was clearing a few last tables when the rich woman suddenly stood up and called me over quietly. I froze for a second, heart pounding. I wasn't sure if I was supposed to be nervous, angry, or just confused. She pointed toward a small corner, away from the other customers, and whispered, "Come with me." I followed her silently, unsure of what to expect. When we were out of earshot, she pulled an envelope from her purse and handed it to me. "This is for you," she said simply. "Read it when you're alone." I nodded, my hands trembling as I took the envelope. She gave me a look that was hard to read, no longer cold, but soft, almost regretful. Then she turned and left without another word. Back in the staff room, I opened the envelope slowly. Inside was a letter and a check for an amount far beyond any tip I'd ever seen. The letter explained who she was, someone I never would have guessed. She was a well-known philanthropist and entrepreneur, someone famous for helping people quietly, without the spotlight. But more than that, she revealed she had once been in a situation much like mine, working hard to support her family, struggling to make ends meet, and feeling invisible. Her letter said she often visited places like ours, not to be served like a queen, but to see how people treated others when they thought no one important was watching. She explained that refusing to tip was her way of testing character, seeing who was kind, who was honest, and who cared beyond money. I sat down, my mind swirling with shock and disbelief. The woman who had hurt me so deeply wasn't just some arrogant rich lady. She was someone who had lived struggles like mine, and was trying to teach a lesson, not in a usual way, but through a moment that would make me see beyond appearances. I remembered all the times I had judged people too quickly, assumed things about them based on their looks or money. And now, here I was, on the other side of that judgment, feeling both humbled and amazed. Later, when I met her one last time outside the restaurant, she explained quietly, "I didn't mean to hurt you. I wanted to remind myself, and you, that kindness is more than just giving money. It's about seeing people, truly seeing them, even when it's hard." That moment changed everything. The cold, untouchable woman I had met turned out to be someone deeply human, flawed, compassionate, and wise in ways I never expected. I realized that sometimes, the people who seem the hardest to understand are the ones carrying the heaviest stories. And sometimes, the harshest lessons come wrapped in unexpected packages. After that night, I couldn't stop thinking about everything that happened. The way I had judged the rich woman so quickly, the hurt I felt when she refused to tip, and then the shock of learning who she really was. It was like my whole world had been turned upside down. For so long, I had believed that people like her, rich, powerful, untouchable, were just out of reach. That they lived in a different world, where kindness was rare, and money ruled everything. But now I saw it wasn't that simple. There was so much more beneath the surface. Her test, harsh as it felt at first, was really a lesson in disguise. She showed me that kindness isn't just about money or appearances. It's about understanding, patience, and seeing the human behind the role they play in life. I realized how easy it is to judge someone by what they wear, how they speak, or how they behave. But those judgments don't tell the full story. The letter and the check she left me changed my life in practical ways too. I was able to help my mom with her medical bills, take a few classes toward nursing school, and for the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful about the future. But even more than the money, it was the way she made me feel seen, truly seen, that stayed with me. It reminded me that everyone, no matter their story or status, deserves kindness and respect. A few weeks later, she returned to the restaurant, not as a demanding customer, but quietly, just to say hello. We talked for a few minutes, and she encouraged me to keep chasing my dreams. She told me that she hoped our encounter would remind me to look deeper when I meet people in the future. Since then, I've carried that lesson with me every day. I treat everyone with kindness, no matter who they are, or how they look. Because you never know what someone is going through, or what story they carry. If there's one thing I want anyone listening to remember, it's this: don't judge someone by their first impression, don't assume you know their story just because of what they wear, or how they act. True kindness comes from seeing people as they are, complex, imperfect, and full of hidden struggles and strengths. That night taught me that we all have a chance to be more than what meets the eye. Sometimes, the richest people are the ones who give us the greatest lessons, and sometimes, the hardest moments bring the most beautiful changes. If this story touched you, please like, comment your thoughts below, subscribe for more stories like this, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Let's remember to be kind to each other, no matter where we come from, or what we look like. Because everyone deserves to be seen. Thank you for listening to my story. If it touched you in any way, please take a moment to like this video. Your support means the world, and helps more stories like this reach people who need them. I'd love to hear what you think, so please leave a comment below. Have you ever judged someone too quickly? Or been judged yourself? Sharing your thoughts and experiences helps us all grow and understand each other better. If you want to hear more stories about real people, life lessons, and moments that change everything, please subscribe to the channel. There are so many stories waiting to be told, and I hope you'll be part of this journey. And if you know someone who could use a reminder about kindness, empathy, or seeing beyond first impressions, please share this video with them. Sometimes, one story is all it takes to change a life, or a mindset. Let's keep this conversation going. Let's be kinder, more patient, and more open to the stories behind every face we meet. Because everyone deserves to be truly seen. Thank you again, and I'll see you in the next story.